Everyone thought she was just another survivor, a bleeding civilian pulled from the wreckage. But when the medic cut open her sleeve, the entire SEAL team went silent. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing who's listening. The dust hadn't even settled. The explosion had ripped through the convoy like thunder tearing open the desert itself. Smoke coiled upward in black spirals, and the air tasted of metal and heat. Lieutenant Ross scanned the debris-strewn road, ears ringing. Around him, his SEAL unit moved like shadows, disciplined, silent, and alert. Every second mattered. That's when they found her. Half buried near a burnt-out truck, a woman lay still. Blood soaked through her torn khaki jacket. Her hair was matted with ash. She wasn't armed, didn't wear a uniform, just civilian clothes and a dusty ID badge half melted by fire. Got a live one, the corpsman shouted. Ross knelt beside her, pressing 2 fingers to her neck. A pulse, faint, but there. Her lips trembled, whispering something inaudible. Hang on, he muttered. You're safe now. Safe. Though even as he said it, the word felt fragile against the chaos around them. They carried her to the med tent, voices sharp and low. The medic, a calm, steady woman named Diaz, took over instantly. Scissors flashed. Bloodied fabric fell away. And then silence. Diaz froze. The other SEALs saw it. The way her hand stopped midair, her pupils narrowing. She glanced up at Ross. Sir, she's not a civilian. The tent went still. Even the generator outside seemed to hush. What are you talking about? Ross asked. Diaz turned the woman's arm, exposing the inside of her bicep. There, beneath the dried blood and torn flesh, was a tattoo. Small, dark, and unmistakable. The trident. The mark of a Navy SEAL. But that couldn't be possible, because there were no female SEALs. At least, none the world knew about. She woke up hours later. The wind outside hissed through torn canvas. Ross stood at the entrance, arms crossed, watching the medic finish her work. The woman blinked, eyes sharp despite the exhaustion. She tried to sit up. Diaz stopped her gently. Easy, the medic said. You lost a lot of blood. Ross stepped closer. Who are you? Her gaze lifted, calm and unflinching. You already know. Her voice was quiet, but something about it silenced the room again. Ross hesitated. The trident, the discipline in her eyes, the calloused palms, the kind only years of training could make. Whoever she wasn't lying. But then came the question that made his stomach turn. Why was she out there? Outside, the team whispered. Some said she was CIA. Others thought she was part of a covert experimental unit. Rumors spun faster than the dust storm rising on the horizon. But one thing was clear, she had saved them. A soldier named Hanks swore he saw her before the blast, dragging an injured SEAL behind a wall just seconds before the convoy went up. She'd taken the brunt of the shrapnel herself. When Diaz told her that, the woman just smiled faintly. He had a family, she said. I didn't. No self-pity. No bravado. Just quiet truth. Ross found himself sitting beside her that night as the camp lights dimmed. You could have walked away, he said softly. You weren't part of this op. She stared at the ground. Neither was the explosion. But I was close enough to hear it. There was something in her tone, something heavy, filled with years of unspoken weight. Days passed. She healed quickly, though she rarely spoke. The team still didn't know her name. The dog tags she wore were scratched beyond recognition. One night, a storm rolled in. The power flickered. Thunder cracked like artillery over the ridge. Ross found her outside, standing barefoot in the rain, eyes on the horizon. He asked her again, quietly, "What unit were you with?" She didn't look at him this time. "Classified," she said. Then after a pause, "We weren't supposed to exist." Ross didn't press further. He didn't have to, because something about her, the way she moved, the way she scanned the dark, told him everything he needed to know. She was one of them, and she'd been erased. When the enemy counterattack came 2 nights later, the truth revealed itself. The team was ambushed just before dawn. Tracers tore through the camp. Radios screamed. Within seconds, chaos exploded around them. Ross barked orders, but it was the woman who moved first. Fast, precise, fearless. She grabbed a fallen rifle and dove behind the sandbags. Her movements were too fluid for a civilian. Tactical, controlled, lethal. Diaz saw her reload without even looking. The SEALs watched, stunned, as she fought alongside them, covering flanks, calling out positions, saving lives. At one point, Hanks went down, pinned by fire. She sprinted through open ground, bullets slicing past her, dragging him back behind cover like she'd done it 1,000 times before. When it was over, and the last echo of gunfire faded into the wind, no one spoke. The camp was a mess of smoke and blood, but every man was alive. She stood there, rifle still in hand, chest rising and falling. Rain mixed with sweat and blood down her arm. Ross approached her slowly. "Who trained you?" he asked. She looked at him, and for a moment, her expression softened. "Same place you did," she said. "They just never wrote our names down." When evac came at sunrise, she refused the stretcher, walked on her own, silent and steady. At the helicopter, she turned back once. The wind whipped through her hair, dust swirling around her like a ghost shadow. "Don't mention me in your report," she told Ross. "Some stories are safer untold." And then she was gone, swallowed by the roar of rotors and the rising light. Weeks later, the team gathered again, medals in hand, commendations for bravery. But Ross couldn't shake her memory. He'd looked through every file, every database. Nothing. No record of a female SEAL. No name, no history. Just a ghost who bled, fought, and disappeared. One night, Diaz found something in her med kit. A folded piece of paper, soaked and faded. Inside was a simple note, written in firm, neat handwriting. For those who serve in silence. Not for recognition, but for the ones who can't. Ross read it twice, feeling something tighten in his chest. Because that's what she was. A soldier who didn't exist, yet changed everything. Because courage doesn't need witnesses. It only needs a moment, and someone willing to stand in it. And sometimes, the quietest ones carry the loudest stories. If this story moved you, let me know in the comments. And if you believe that real heroes often go unseen, subscribe, because more stories like this deserve to be told.